We showed up about 7:30. Young lady that was helping me had set up the table approximately where we're standing right now filming. Honestly, we did not measure it. I just, in the old country boy's voice, I eyeballed it, and I felt like it was over 100 feet. We had been sitting here. We had talked to the gentleman inside and a young lady in there that was working the election. They had informed us that just to my left here at the parking blocks, we had to remain behind that with our table and things. So we did. We had it set up. We had, and not to leave anything out here, give anyone a false impression, behind me you can see the front door of the, or to my right, the front door to the City Hall. We had went into the parking lot. A friend and relative of ours had pulled in, and we were, to not be yelling across the parking lot, decided we would step over and just chat a minute. Nothing political was even going on. We finished the conversation. They had to go vote. We came back to our table. Approximately 5 minutes later, a lady from the voting inside where the polls are stepped out the front door of City Hall, mentioned to us that, said, you guys can't come within 100 feet. Someone had made a complaint. We felt like it was probably when we were talking to a relative and friend, but we apologized, told her that we did not realize that what we were doing was wrong. We were not electioneering, as has been said, when we were there. I had never heard that word. I told several people. First time I'd ever heard it was when Mayor Black showed up about 10 minutes later. He started coming toward the entrance of City Hall, and he was talking to us as he came, and obviously raising his voice to be heard. We were doing the same thing to respond. I stepped up, walked across. I was wearing my shirt that day, and walked over towards the front of City Hall. He met me and was telling me by no means could we be where we were at. And I told him that we had been told by the folks inside that were managing the voting polls that we were behind the concrete blocks, the parking blocks, and that we were not in violation. He said, well, it's not 100 feet. And I said, well, it's pretty close if it's not. At that time, he called Mr. Gage and one of our local policemen here in Mansfield, called them over and said, do we have a rope to measure this? And they said they did. At that time, Mr. Gage saying that you cannot be here wearing that shirt and hat. I said, I don't want to yell at the mayor from across the parking lot. That's the reason I'm here. Well, you can't wear that hat, he says. I turned around and headed back to this location, took my red shirt off, left this shirt, is actually the shirt I had underneath it, left it on, walked back across the parking lot to finish the discussion with the mayor. He still walks up and starts telling me that I can't wear that hat. I told you, you can't wear that hat and shirt. I got a little upset at that time, I will not lie. I pulled my bill down and I said, sir, that is a Mansfield Tiger 2025 state championship football hat. He had nothing to say to that. We moved on over to this location. Again, they had already measured. We moved our table back an additional 5 to 10 feet just to make sure, even though it was within that. Mayor Black at this time started telling us that we couldn't be on city property, that we would have to move across the highway, across 96 is what I asked. He said they've never allowed this. I've spoke to the commissioner, Sebastian County. They said they've never had signs here in this area on city property, and I'm not going to allow it now. To my right, there's a house catty corner across the street from City Hall. A lady that was sitting with us walked over, knocked on the door. The lady said that would be fine. We could put our table and our signs over in her yard. We didn't think we had a problem. Mayor Black stopped by, reiterated what he had said before, but never apologized apparently to anyone. And if I offended Mayor Black, I will apologize. If I offended him, I will. But we were not in violation. And as to the public property or city property, I told Mayor Black that if it was city property, it belonged to the people. It was government property, so that meant it was owned by the citizens. I did not expect to be treated that way. I feel like that, my personal opinion is he stepped over his bounds as mayor, but he wasn't willing to even listen. There was no concessions made, and I felt like that it was somewhat rude. I grew up in this small town, and there's one thing that I will put my heart and soul into above all things, other than when I served 21 years in the military in the United States Air Force. I will always support Mansfield, our freedoms, and everything else that goes with it. I still believe that the city, in this case, if that's what they stand on, is that we can't be on city property, I believe they're wrong. But I felt like that we were being pushed around, and if you will, our citizens' rights were violated. I'm glad that we're getting this out in the open. I don't think anyone, mayor or otherwise, voting judge or voting police, whatever they call them, I think that this is where our country has come to. We're in a bad place, and we need to change it. And we need to stand up and speak up for our rights. And our voting rights are some of the last freedoms that we have left.